All right, so the next question reads, what is the discriminant of 3x squared plus 6x plus 5, and what does it mean? So in previous lessons, I talked about what the quadratic formula is. It's basically a different method of finding the zeros of a quadratic equation or a quadratic function when you're unable to use factoring or grouping or any other technique. And so it finds the values of x which satisfy the quadratic equation through this formula. So negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Okay, where this is the quadratic formula, ax squared plus bx plus c, where we use the coefficients a, b, and c. Okay, so the discriminant is found within this quadratic formula, and the discriminant d, is equal to b squared minus 4ac. So the discriminant is used as a test to evaluate how many solutions or zeros does a quadratic function have. So we're going to calculate our discriminant first, and then we'll describe what this test tells us. Okay. So our quadratic function is 3x squared plus 6x plus 5. Okay, so this is not easily factorable. You guys can try it, but we have determined that is not factorable with our own techniques. So we're going to use our quadratic function, our quadratic formula, and our discriminant. So first we're going to use the discriminant here. So a equals 3, b equals 6, and c equals 5. So our discriminant d is going to be equal to 6 squared, or b squared, minus 4 times a, 3, times c, 5. So we get 36 minus 60, and that gives us negative 24. Okay, so what does it all mean? So when the discriminant is greater than 0, there are two solutions. So there are two zeros. Okay, when discriminant is equal to 0, there is one solution. And when discriminant is less than 0, there are 0 solutions. Okay, so now evaluating our discriminant of our example here, we know that 3x squared plus 6x plus 5 has 0 zeros slash solutions. Finally, what does this mean for graphically speaking? What does this mean, right? So when we talk about a zero, when we talk about a solution, we're also talking about the x-intercept of our quadratic function. So in other words, we can say that our example has 0 x-intercepts. That means that it is floating somewhere in a quadrant and never intercepts the x-axis. Okay. So other than that, the solution is correct. They describe what the discriminant tells us and what the discriminant test is about. They tell us where it's derived from, and they also work through the example to find the correct answer and tell us what this means about the quadratic function. So the solution is correct. This is also a good description. So one last thing to note is that the junior tutor wrote that when d is less than 0, there are two imaginary solutions for the quadratic equation, or there will be 0 real solutions. So you guys can really test this out by actually just looking at the quadratic formula, right? So when your discriminant is less than 0, we have a negative number within this bracket. So we already know that this is going to be an imaginary number or a complex solution because of how the quadratic formula is, how the quadratic formula works, right? So if we look at discriminant equals 0, right, this whole square root is going to be 0, so we don't have two solutions anymore. And if the discriminant is positive or greater than 0, this is not a non-zero number anymore, and this plus or minus sign is going to be functional within our quadratic formula. So that's another way you guys can interpret that.